So welcome, Danny.
Thank you so much. I haven't seen you in forever.
It's been a while. It's
We
been a
talked on the
long time.
phone.
I have to ask you, what is that hanging from your microphone? Is that
Oh,
Superman?
yeah, that is Superman. That was a gift. Yeah.
I love that. Is that your
Yeah.
illustration?
That's my decoration. It's not quite as extravagant as yours, but
What? What's my decoration?
well, I mean, all your pictures in the background, you got a really
Yeah.
nice setup.
Thank you. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
curated. If you looked to that side, you'd see a big mess over there.
Yeah.
So it's strategically hidden.
Yep.
All right. So you were a sheriff's officer. I was a law clerk. That's how it all began, our friendship.
Yeah.
And we did lose touch though for a while when I left. And so for some of the stuff that we're going to talk about, I wasn't really around a lot. I wish I was, but
Yeah.
lost touch for a bit. So for people that don't know you, give us your resume because you have been in law enforcement in various capacities.
Yeah. Well, I mean, before I even get into that, do you remember where we had our real first conversation?
We were at a bar. Was it Nova Terra
It
at
was
the time?
Nova Terra. Yeah, good memory.
Yeah, did I give away any secrets then?
I don't know. I think we started there. Started our like a brother sister relationship.
I want to call it a bromance, but I'm not a
Yeah.
pro.
No.
So
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean, well, I mean, I started my law enforcement career in 1997. It was at the corrections facility on Route 130, North Brunswick. So I
Also known
started
as the workhouse.
the workhouse. Yeah. Do you know why it was called the workhouse?
No.
Well, because they used to actually farm the food over there, right out in the front. Now there's soccer fields and everything and buildings, but yeah, they used to farm their own food right there. I believe they
They
also
being
did.
who? The inmates?
Yeah, yeah,
Really? I didn't
yep,
know that.
yeah.
Well, then
And they
I'll give
also, I
that a
believe they used to do license plates there for the state. They used to make the license plates there.
Oh, that's so funny. So that's where that comes from. I didn't know if it was actually true that inmates did that.
Yeah, no, I believe it was there. I'm not 100% sure. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, I started out at the workhouse in 1997. Then 2000, I went over to the Middlesex County Sheriff's Department, and then finished out over at North Brunswick Police Department in 2005.
Did you always want to be in law enforcement?
You know, it's so funny that you say that because I used to try to convince myself that I wanted to, but when I was just getting married, my father-in-law at the time, he just told me, like, why don't you take the civil service test? And I did, and I did pretty well. Obviously, I got through, you know, three wonderful careers, basically from the jail, the sheriff's department, and the police department. I mean, it's all under law enforcement, but there are three different components to the actual job itself. So,
Like what?
well, you got the police department. If we could go reverse, I mean, that's where we're making contact with people on the streets. They go to the courthouse. That's where, I saw the court cases as a sheriff's officer. And then, of course, the jail. That's where they end up if the people end up there.
So those were very different experiences though, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I didn't really like the jail too much. That's a really tough job. I give the guys that make a career out of it so much respect. I mean, it really is. It's very tough to. It's. I mean, it's just a very tough job. It's.
Well,
You
I know as I'll call myself a civilian. I one thing I know about corrections is they don't have firearms. The
no,
corrections officers, right?
no. I mean, when I was there, the only thing they had on them was basically keys, a radio, and the guys, which at that time we called the goon squad, the guys that were in the hallway, they had, pepper spray, the pepper spray that was on them, but that was it. Other than that,
So
all
when
right,
you went into corrections, how old were you?
21.
That's a baby.
I know you don't really think about that until you're our age now, and then you're like, wow, man, 21. I was like kid. I mean, I just got my license a few years prior to that. Just
It's
graduated high
not.
school. I
Were
know.
you scared?
Oh, I was very scared. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah.
Well, now you can admit it, right?
Well, of course, yeah. Now I can. But yeah, I mean, when you're sitting in there and you got guys that are charged with murder, and I mean, I grew up in spots where there's no tough neighborhoods or anything like that. There was no way of learning to be street smart. So that's where I learned basically a lot of the ins and outs of being street smart, I would say.
Were there really murderers in there? Because we're talking
Yeah.
about North Brunswick, New Jersey. There were?
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, there was definitely they're there now. I mean, they're waiting trial.
But a lot of them are just petty thieves, aren't they?
No, you have everything from shoplifter, prostitution, all the way up to murder, rape.
Wow, okay. So
Yeah.
that's
No, it's
that's sort of a misconception. I always hate when people say about whatever town, fill in the blank, oh, so and so only works there. Nothing ever happens there. As though your job somehow is not dangerous anymore.
you'd be surprised how they call it small town USA. How I mean, look at what happened out in Boulder, Colorado. It's a ski resort. It's a vacation area, and you got some guy just going decide that he's gonna take his anger out on customers. I'm not really in the loop anymore because I'm retired, but I believe North Brunswick already had definitely one murder, but I believe they might have had two so far this year. I'm not 100% sure, but
Yeah.
you think of a nice town like North Brunswick, and I mean, they have their problems too.
Yeah, it's true. I hate to be all Debbie Downer, but I don't think you're truly safe anywhere. So I don't think anybody should ever get too comfortable. But I want to hear more about what it was like when you were a corrections officer. So you start at the job, you're terrified, but you don't admit that to anybody, of course, right?
No, I mean, it was just in the beginning, I was a little nervous. I mean, it was more nerves.
Yeah.
It you don't know what you're really doing. I mean, you learn from the academy, but then, I mean, back then, it isn't what they do now. They give you the keys and say, here you go, kid, make sure nobody escapes. That's it.
There's no on the job training.
No, you get like a week or so of people checking up on you, but no, you were just given the keys literally, and that's it. Now they do that. Now they have a program put together where they have the people come in that are applying for the job, and they'll have them interview, walk around the facility. They want to expose them to that atmosphere because they want to make sure that they really want to do this. And then after they get hired as a rookie, but they didn't go to the academy yet. They'll have them sit in the units and actually work the units like a corrections officer. And basically they're doing the actual job of a correctional officer. It's just they haven't gone to the academy yet.
So there's time for them to change their minds.
Yes. I saw a lot of things. I'll tell you that. I mean, there were a couple of stabbings that was completely a culture shock for me. I mean,
How so?
because like I said, I grew up in a town where, I mean, our biggest crime of the century was mischief night, throwing eggs at each other, so yeah, I mean, so when you're going from that, playing manhunt to people getting stabbed, I mean, that's a complete culture shock for somebody.
Yeah, and it's there's prison culture, right? It's like they
Yeah,
have their own set of rules and norms and
absolutely.
traditions, if we want to call them that.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily know what that culture is when you start.
No, when you first start, but I'll tell you what, you have to learn real quick. So I was there for about 2.5 years, and you pick up a lot of interesting tricks that are done. Like, for instance, if they want to hide narcotics or maybe a knife or something, a small little blade in their room, they'll take a bar of soap and they'll cut it in half with dental floss. They'll dig out the middle, they'll go and they'll put whatever they want, you know, whatever they're trying to hide in the soap, put a little water on it, and it'll take away the, you know, the cutting line on around the soap. You just think it was just
Brilliant.
another bar of soap. Yeah, I mean, it really is. I remember one of the other things they did that was pretty neat was they would make a bowl out of the bottom part of a bleach bottle. So after the bleach is done, they'll clean it out and everything, and then they'll go and they'll take. And I actually asked them, I said, "How did you cut that?" Because I'm in my head, I'm thinking they had a knife or something. So the guy says, "Here, I'll show you." And he took a piece of dental floss, and he starts going back and forth with it, and he cut right through. It was pretty amazing. I mean, you really do learn a lot of neat little things that it's just
They learn to be very
ingenuity.
resourceful.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Well, you know, a lot of the people in there, they're pretty smart.
No, listen, there are people from all walks of life. I mean, there was a dentist that was in there, I remember. Like I said, there was several high profile murders. There was one that I remember. He was even, I see him still on, I don't know if you ever watched the ID channel or not, but it was on the ID channel, his whole story.
What's his
And
name? Do you remember?
yeah, I remember his last name's Fortin. I don't know if it's Michael Fortin or Kevin Fortin, but his last name was Fortin.
Wow.
Fortin. Yeah.
So when you first started, did you feel like the inmates sort of smelled your fresh blood?
Oh, they know. They call us new boots.
They do. Did
Oh,
you
they
kind
know.
of
Yeah.
pull the wool over your eyes? Did you have to be careful of that?
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you a funny story. I used to, in the beginning, you know, you're sitting down and you're trying to think like, all right, I got to approach these guys a certain way. And so, you know, you start to go out like with the tough guy, chest out, and I'm going to tell them what they're going to do and they're going to do it. I'm going to order them. That's what I'm going to do. So I remember I went down and I said, "I'm ordering you now to clean these tables up and or you're going back to your room." And they
Sounds like
busted out.
parenting.
So yeah, here's guys that are facing 20 plus years listening to some 20-year-old kid telling them he's got to clean these tables or else. So it was just hilarious that, you know, after I said, "I'm ordering you," I mean, in my head, I was already saying, "Don't say that. You're going to look like an idiot." And sure enough, they all start busting out laughing. I start laughing. And then, you know, from that point, you know, you start to finally get your niche. You know, you figure out what really needs to be done. You know, though, I mean, look, you got to make sure that the rooms are somewhat clean, that, you know, they're keeping themselves healthy. They're eating, you know, they're taking care of themselves. You know, we've had inmates that, I mean, guys don't shower for like a couple of weeks, and that's a health problem for themselves. So we have to bring that to the nurse's attention and the doctor's attention, write up a report. So there's a lot of stuff that you have to do besides making sure that they don't commit any other crimes or escape or do anything that could possibly harm them or another inmate.
So were there times when you were alone with them, or were you always with somebody else?
Yeah, from what I remember, you had the units where they were locked down for a good part of the day, and you were alone with them probably about 6 hours a day. And, you know, for your shift, you worked 8 hours, so about 5 or 6 hours they were around you, but you were alone. And then you had the bigger units. Now there was 48 inmates, and then it was me. So you had 48. Yeah, you had 48.
They don't
guys.
even allow that in daycare.
No, I know, right? Could you imagine?
Oh,
And then in the bigger units, it was like 130 or 125 or something like that. And then you had 2 officers. But there were times, you know, your partner took a break. So it was just you and 120 some guys. And that's usually when stuff would kick off. Somebody will have a fight or there'll be some sort of gang thing going on. And all of a sudden it just kicks off. And that's the terminology they use. And
they being the inmates?
the inmates, yeah, or the corrections officers. I mean, you know, just a fight just breaks out, and I mean, I've seen like 20, 30 guys just going at it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So what do
pretty.
you do? And I have to ask you, did you feel like your training prepared you for it? Or
Yeah, no, they definitely do. They train you. I basically what you do in that situation is you would hit a button or call out what they call a code, and then the big boys come in and they clear them out. And if anybody's got to get taken out, they get them taken out and they put them in solitary, which is 23 out of 24 hours.
that's crazy. That
Yeah.
and how that's a really small cell, right?
What's that?
That the solitary is a really small cell where there's
Yeah.
really right?
Basically, I tell people that are, I used to tell them, like, just imagine living in your bathroom for about 23 hours out of the day. Could you imagine? Because that's about the size of just an average bathroom, where it's tub, toilet, and the sink, and that's it.
Yeah,
That's
not Kim Kardashian's bathroom.
no, exactly. My bathroom.
Yeah, our bathroom, normal
Yeah,
people.
yeah, exactly.
No, that's rough. But there weren't windows too, right? Like it's not like in the movies where you see the bars on the windows. Did you have exposure to sunlight?
It was very limited. I mean, they got, I mean, it wasn't completely like brick walled Alcatraz. It was, but the windows were really not that big. I mean, they were like maybe 6 inches wide, about 2 feet tall.
Well, I mean, the thing that strikes me about it is that there's data on it that your exposure to sunlight can affect your mood. It can,
Oh, absolutely.
exacerbate depression.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's actually sort of important that not just the inmates have exposure to sunlight, but that the corrections officers do too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, could you imagine working the midnight shift and then you roll into you're stuck. A lot of guys that work midnights would get stuck. So they're going from an atmosphere of it being very quiet, and then now they're working their 7 to 3 shift, and it's like complete hell breaks loose. I mean, they're up. When I say they, I mean, they might up
Yeah.
and you've been in rooms where people have conversations in a lunchroom or something. It's very loud and it just gets to you after a while. Your head is, you go home with splitting headaches.
Did you ever form any relationships? I don't really know the word to use. Like, were there certain
Yeah.
inmates that you talked to that you liked? You almost felt like in a weird way, if we had met under other circumstances, we'd be friends.
Not necessarily like being friends or anything like that, but that's what I was getting into before, after the whole I order you type of thing, is that you start to realize that they bleed like we do, they breathe like we do. They're not, some sort of animal. These are human beings, and they have emotions and feelings just like you and I. And it was funny because I used to sit back and think, growing up as a kid, you were brought up, your father and mother told you bad people go to jail. Do you want to be a bad person? And that's what we were taught.
Yeah.
And then there comes a time when I was working there. Like, I was only there for a little over 2.5 years, or right around there. But they, when the inmates there, they were generally really nice people that just happen to make bad decisions. That's the way I look at everyone that's in the jail now. And
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, because I did make not friends, but just being friendly. Everyone would come up to me, talk, and just want to know what's going on outside. Any information, they just wanted to know, like, what's new, what's going on. And I mean, could you imagine, like, 20 years ago, if somebody went in jail and they came out now, the culture shock that they would have? I mean,
No.
yeah. I mean, you ask them what app they got, they're thinking you got a shrimp cocktail, for an appetizer. That's what they know of apps. They don't know anything about apps,
Yeah.
So
Definitely something I think about a lot and
yes.
kind of question like what should we really be doing for inmates when they're in?
I mean, it's just really, it's about mental health now. That's where the shift should be. It should be focusing around mental health. why did they do what they did instead of punishing them?
Yeah, yeah. And I think I've read that there's an overwhelming percentage of the males. I don't know about the females, but I would venture to say it's probably similar. But the males in prison came from fatherless homes.
I'm sure there's the statistics on that. Absolutely.
So, but yeah, I would love to have more conversation about that.
Yeah,
Maybe
absolutely.
another podcast.
Sure.
So you didn't like it there though, because obviously you were looking to leave.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a police officer. At that point, then I started to actually like that whole atmosphere. I mean, I met a lot of good guys. We all decided we were going to take the test again. So I took the civil service test and I was able to get a job at the Middlesex County Sheriff's Department.
Okay, so you wanted to be in law enforcement and the CO position was just something that opened up for you, and that's why you took it.
Yeah, it was a stepping stone for me. And, to give the position respect, they are in the law enforcement category. So, I wanted to be a police officer. I wanted to be on the streets. I wanted to engage with the people, save the world. That's where I wanted to be. Working
Hence
inside.
the Superman.
Yes, hence the Superman, exactly. So, I mean, it was just the excitement of it all. It was very appealing.
I have a friend who says that the only difference between the inmates and the COs is the people holding the keys.
That's a good reference. Yeah, I mean, it's you're basically doing time with them. I forgot I think the number, if you did 25-year career and then, you add up all the hours, it comes out to like, I think almost 10 years of prison that you do.
I don't know if these are just, just stereotypes, but you hear that a lot of times COs will kind of go dirty because they're around this influence of inmates and, people who live by a different code, a lot of them. And they might see opportunities to, I don't know, make money or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know if it's necessarily their environment or if it's influenced by money, like you mentioned. But yes, I mean, throughout all of law enforcement, whether it's your corrections or sheriff's officer or police officer, there's a lot of stuff that happens. I've seen it. I've experienced it, as you know. So, but yeah, I mean, like I said, even police officers, corrections officers, and sheriff's officers, I mean, they make dumb mistakes. They make dumb decisions.
Were there any examples you could give when you were
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of guys that were having, sexual affairs with a couple of the female inmates.
How do you do that? They have access to them?
I don't even know. They somehow it was in the paper. That's all I remember. You went to work one day and you found out and you're like, oh, this guy and that guy just were arrested for that. There was a guy that got in trouble with child pornography. So, there was a lot of drugs. There was a social worker that was bringing drugs in for the inmates.
Did you ever know of anything that was going on though? Because I know there's like this code to, not squeal.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see anything really that was, I mean, I've seen guys like they're not supposed to smoke, and I've seen guys give cigarettes out. So it wasn't really anything harmful. I mean, they smoke, they get the drugs in, they get money in. I've seen cell phones, and matter of fact, I even seen a gun. Someone smuggled a gun in. Could you imagine that?
No.
Like, how the hell did you get a gun in here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you would have had to have cooperation of somebody, right?
Of course.
I mean,
yeah, absolutely. Even the correctional officers have to go through a metal detector. They got their stuff searched. But somehow, some way, I mean, the stuff gets in there.
But was there pressure amongst the officers to, if somebody found out, you were, smuggling drugs in for inmates, was there an understanding that they're gonna squeal? Or was there a different kind of code like, well, you're not supposed to tell? Because then you become the rat.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think when it came to stuff like that, it was more or less like you now turned into one of them. That was the thought behind it. So there was no, like you would, I think more or less what you're getting at is like if a correctional officer beat up an inmate, I saw stuff like that back then, and you just kept your mouth shut. But if somebody was to bring in drugs or something to the inmates, then no, they reported it. There was
That
no
must be
code of
hard
that.
too when you're 21,
Yeah,
you on
exactly. It
the
was
job,
tough.
you see something shady.
Well, that's it. I mean, the one thing I always remembered was that, and guys took me under their wings, guys that were there for 15 plus years. And they always said to me, don't give them anything because they will own you. And it's true. And I think that's what happened, like in the case where the two guys were fired because they had a sexual relationship with these two female inmates. So they had something on them. I think they were bringing in drugs in exchange for sex. Like I said, I came to work one day and I found out and I was like, oh my God, all right,
Yeah. So
not
you were
worth it.
there 2.5 years, you said?
Yes.
And then, so how were you so thrilled to get out of there when you got the other job?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I give the guys an unbelievable amount of respect for making a career there. You have to be a special person.
It
So,
wasn't
but
for you.
it was not for me. No, I wanted to be out. I wanted to be out on the road. And same thing with the sheriff's department. That was a complete different culture. That was the other side where I was sitting in a courtroom, and it's a very respectful job. I very grateful that I was able to work for the Middlesex County Sheriff's Department. But again, it wasn't for me. I wanted to do something different. It was a little bit more slow pace.
Well, you weren't really on the road, like you said. You were inside all the time, right? At the court.
Yeah, I was in the court. I was in the courthouse. Yep. So being in the courthouse, it's a little tough. It gets very boring. You hear the same cases, and I was in the family division, the divorce section, basically, and so after a while, it just gets boring. They do have guys that are on the road for the sheriff's department. They transport the prisoners, or sometimes they'll have them doing road details, stopping cars and everything, but it wasn't really as involved. I don't know what they do now, but at the time when I was working there, it was more or less just court supervision, bringing the inmates back and forth.
So how was that different though than when you were a CO?
Uh, Basically, because I wasn't locked down, they get to go back.
Thank you.
Yeah, I see them for an hour and then they go back, and that was it.
Did you feel like you were street smart by the time you left the CO
Yeah.
position?
Oh, by the time I let, yeah, no, definitely. And I learned a lot from the correctional officers too, because they would tell you, look out for this and look out for that. When we did our what they call shakedowns, they go in the rooms and they strip everything down to metal or concrete. So everything gets taken out. They get searched, everything. So that's where I learned about things like the soap, where they would hide stuff. They would go and take a milk carton, put stuff inside the milk carton, put string, the dental floss around it, like barely flush it. And then you would see a string coming out of the toilet. Now, who would put their hands in the toilet or even think to look there? But that's where they would hide some stuff.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's stuff I would never think of, but I guess you don't think of it or learn it until you're in a position where you need it and it's useful.
Yeah, exactly.
I have no need to hide anything in my toilet bowl, so it
No,
never come up.
no, everything in the toilet bowl is leaving.
Yeah, that's it. You're getting rid of it. Not interested in there. So, but did you feel like you had maybe a little bit of an edge when you got into, I don't want to say regular law enforcement, but when you were in a
As a
different
police
position?
officer?
Yeah. Did you
Yeah,
feel like you kind of had like maybe an edge, a different kind of education than the others did?
yeah, you definitely did. If you were, say, brought up in a town like I was, and then you became a police officer, I I always think, or I recommend that you should at least do a year or so in a, correction facility before you become a police officer. I think it's a although, like I said, although it wasn't what I wanted to do, it was a great experience. I learned a lot. So for just having that experience definitely helped me, because I could just the eye movement, the body movement, you just recognize it. Not only that, a lot of the people that I saw on the streets were the same people I saw inside the jail. So
Yeah.
you build a relationship.
What do you mean by eye movement and body movement?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different, like, say if you're gonna, when someone is gonna run on you, you could just tell, and you could cut that right off right away, because I would, you get in front of them, you're like, listen, man, don't run on me. I know what you're thinking. So it's just that conversation that you would have with them. And like I said, that I treated everybody with respect at the jail. So when they saw me on the street, they gave me that respect back. And I would say to them, hey, you remember me not too long ago, I saw you and I was always very good to you. And he'd be like, yeah, man, you're right. You got that. So, it was that street cred that, you got. And that's really what it all came down to, was just treating everybody like, a man, wanted to be treated like a man. And,
yeah,
and it was just
like
about
a human being.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you feel like you have some special, I don't know, awareness of human behavior that maybe the rest of us don't have because of your career?
I mean, there's a lot of things you do that, well, with COVID around, I haven't really noticed if I still do it. But like, for instance, I always have my back to the wall, no matter where I go. And I probably still do that and just don't notice it. And the reason why is because you just want to scan the whole room. And also you want to know where your fire escape is. So yes, you do think about these things. Your family, your friends, your family, your friends have no clue what's going on in your head. But there's guys that actually sit back and think, hey, all right, if this situation happens, I'm going to do this. If that happens, if the French fries fall on the ground and blah, blah, and I don't want to slip on them, so you start to think about all these crazy things. And your significant other or your friends or whoever are having a conversation with you, and you're like, yeah, okay, yeah, all right. And meanwhile, you're thinking about, like, this place is going to have a fire, or there's going to be an active shooter, and what are you going to do? But yeah, you do that. I mean, it's funny. And the funny part is that when you go to Dunkin' Donuts with a couple of your friends and everybody's got their back to the wall and we're trying to have a conversation and we're all looking straight ahead talking. That's the funniest thing.
It's funny because, like I said, my boyfriend's a police officer, and he does the same thing. He always has to have his back to the wall. And I sort of tease him, like, really, come on now, like, what's going to happen here?
Yeah.
And I really it'll turn into, like, not an argument, but like kind of joking with each other, that when we go into a restaurant, a nice restaurant where they have all they have the bench up against the wall, and then a table and then a chair on the other side.
Yes.
You see all the women sitting on the bench, and the dude is on the outside, but not at our table. At our table, my boyfriend's on the bench. I'm like, really? I'm gonna be the only woman sitting at the chair.
Yeah,
but
it's so
it's
true.
just something I've learned to do for him. It makes him happy. But another thing I've noticed is we'll leave someplace and he'll say something about, the guy with the red shirt on. He's like, I didn't see a guy with a red shirt on. I don't know who you're talking about. But he remembers the guy with the red shirt. And I'm like, he really does pay attention to who's.
Yeah, you do. You do. You'll go to Walmart, you'll go to Target, Home Depot, wherever, and you'll see people that you've encountered with. And that's why that was another reason why I always treated people with a lot of respect, was because, I have kids now and I want to make sure that I go to Home Depot and, nothing happens. I don't want to get confronted. And speaking of my kids, I even told my kids, I said, if something were to ever happen, don't stand there. I want you to run and go get help. There's nothing you could do. Don't worry about me. Whatever happens, don't even look. Just go running straight and you'll get help. And that's the lifestyle of a police officer. You
Well,
know,
it's also very stressful though. There's a lot. I went to I actually happened to be at the PBA mini convention one year
mhm.
because I have a divorce law firm and we thought it'd be a good population to advertise to.
Yeah, I bet you had a
And
lot of fun.
yeah, it was. And I did kind of snoop around and go into some of the seminars because I'm nerdy like that and I wanted to learn something and see what they were teaching. And there was a guy there. I wish I could remember his name because I was really impressed with him. He was a former police officer, but now he does counseling for police officers that have post-traumatic stress.
Hmm.
And he said a lot of officers can really have it and not even realize that they have it because you don't have to have gone to war and been in combat or
No,
even have had any particularly traumatic experience as a police officer to still have some symptoms of it just from the lifestyle.
oh, absolutely. A lot of people think of PTSD as just being military related. And I mean, without a doubt, there are a lot of people that are in the military that are affected by that and have been diagnosed. But I mean, anybody could be diagnosed with PTSD. And I actually have. And the reason why is, and it took a very long time for me to even speak about it. But one of the things that affected me was, and I was actually just talking to a friend about it that was on the scene. It was one of those February afternoons where it was like 65, 70 degrees out. We were we get a call of a 2-year-old baby that drowned. And so we rush out to the house, and I grabbed the baby from the mother who pulled her out of the water. It was a ravine in the back where the mother would bring her daughter to go feed the ducks. And like I said, it was one of those uh, February afternoons where it was beautiful out and everybody was outside just communicating, talking, how's everything going? How was your holidays? Blah, blah, blah. And it was one of those situations where, I mean, in a split second, I mean, people with kids, it happens all the time. It takes 1 second. So the family thought she went to the house. So they ran to the house to see if the baby was inside the house. Meanwhile, that precious time, she actually went to the back of the woods where there's a small lake. She slipped. She, probably was going to touch the water or something, but unfortunately she drowned. And I mean, we did CPR on her. I had her right in my arms. And, it was one of those oh man, I get emotional already thinking about it. But yeah, it really affected me. And it was, I mean, she died right in my arms. I mean, I felt her heartbeat, very slight, but because it was cold water, it kept her heart beating just a little bit. And it was just very, very sad. It affected me. I mean, I had nightmares for years with that. And I never really talked about it. One of the guys who had a similar situation talked to me about it a couple of times. But I mean, as police officers, we just go and put it in the back of our heads. And, it was one of those things that I just could not put in the back of my head. One of those scenes. I mean, I've seen a lot of things, even in a town like North Brunswick, nice little town, seen everything.
Well, that's exactly what I mean by that when people say, oh, nothing ever happens there. Doesn't mean it's not still a tough job.
Yeah, I mean, just because it's not Camden or Newark where there's, carjackings, drive-by shootings. I mean, the police they are tough towns to work in as a police officer for sure. But there are situations just like that where, it could affect you for the rest of your life. I mean, I had nightmares for a very long time, and it really affected me. And it was a very, very sad situation. I was down at the hospital. There's a lot of guys down there. A lot of guys were emotional. I mean, cops do cry. I was bawling my eyes out with the family trying to comfort them, and they were like comforting me. I mean, it was just a very, very emotional situation. So
I would imagine anything with kids like that is really hard.
well, that was the thing too, is that I had my son who was the same age as her at that time. So, you're sitting back and you ever see a movie and like you're watching the scene and like there's a flash and you're like, say there's a couple in a scene and there's a flash and then you see the person's face and then the face changes to somebody else. That's what I actually saw. I felt like I was doing CPR on my son and they were having I was having nightmares like that for a very long time.
Wow.
Mm.
Did you take any extra precautions in your household after that? Like, I always think it's really important
Yeah.
for people, everybody, every single person to know CPR.
Oh God. Yes. Well, before we even had, you know, my ex and I, we made sure everybody took a CPR class actually before my son was even born. And it is important. And it's something that, you just don't take once and then that's it. You have to take it a couple of times. It's just like anything, you have to practice it. There was another incident where I was right around the corner and a boy drowned and I was able to actually bring him back. And I was so grateful because I just was like thinking, I don't want this to happen again.
I'm
But
sure the
yeah,
parents were so grateful.
oh God, yeah, I mean, they were just obviously very happy that their son was alive and well. But
So you left the sheriff's department. How long were you there?
I was there for about 5 years. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
2000. Yeah, 2000 to 2005.
I thought you were there a lot longer than that.
No, no, it wasn't that much.
And then you went to North Brunswick Police Department.
Yeah,
And how long were you there?
17, no, 16 years, 16 years, I believe.
You were in North Brunswick for
I
16
know,
years?
I know.
I
Yeah,
can't
I think
believe
it
that.
was. I have to do my math. I got to count my toes, but
Yeah. So you were still actively seeking other employment to get out of
yeah.
the courthouse.
Well, as you know, my good friend Joe, who
Mhm.
you know very well, we basically were following each other from the jail. We met each other at the jail. Very good friend of mine, and we went to the sheriff's department together, and then we went to he went to North Brunswick before I did, but you know told me that there was an opening, and yeah, I took it. It was a great opportunity for me.
And how was that? Did you love it in the beginning?
Yeah, I really did. I mean, I still love being a police officer. The whole uh, job itself. I really do. I do miss the uniform. There's a saying that goes around headquarters. You miss the clowns, you don't miss the circus.
Yes, I've heard that.
Yeah. So I mean, the guys were all great. Everybody was really nice. Good teamwork. You have your problems here and there, but it's like family. You're gonna fight with your brothers and sisters. It happens, and then you get over it. And but I'll tell you what. No matter what happened, whether you got along with your partner or not, when it came to work and safety, everybody had each other's backs, and that was one thing. That was the even when I became a supervisor, I always said, I don't care how you feel about anybody, you better have this person's back, and that was important.
Well, it's sort of I think you guys call it a paramilitary organization, right?
Yeah, it is.
Paramilitary kind of
Yep,
situation.
right from the academy.
Yeah, and I probably a lot of what I understand about law enforcement is partly from television, which is a lot of people,
Sure.
or exposure that I've had to police officers, hanging around with you and your friends, and now
Hmm.
having a boyfriend who's a police officer, and you do get a different perspective. I don't necessarily think what we see on television is accurate. Is there any TV show or movie you've seen that you felt was accurate?
Oh man, maybe I don't even know that. What's so funny? I don't even watch any police shows at all. I was never one of those guys like Cops or anything. I mean, that would really be it. I mean, there's
Oh,
really
yeah.
not. Yeah, I mean, is any of those reality shows? Obviously, I mean, there's probably some little bit of staging, but you really can't make up some of the stuff those guys are going through. But
Yeah.
I mean, as far as like a regular show, oh God, what was that one? There's one in New York and one in a Law and Order. I would say that was pretty accurate. You know,
Really?
yeah, I mean, there was, you know, maybe a little bit of theatrics with, you know, the forensic stuff. You know, they find a hair like in the middle of the woods, you know, all by
Yes.
itself, you
And it would
know,
always
but
be the killer's hair.
yes, always, always. They want to find a cigarette 10 feet deep in a grave, you know, so,
Yes, yes. Well,
but
something I've heard too is I don't remember all of the circumstances, but something happens and I heard that the officers at headquarters were laughing about it. And
mhm, yeah.
and I don't remember exactly what it was. I want to say it might have been a sexual assault on somebody.
Mm,
And people were making jokes about it. And
really?
I got really upset when I heard it. And I was like, that's not funny. Like
No.
that person is a victim and her
Yeah.
family is affected by it. And for you to make jokes about it is so insensitive.
Very insensitive. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But then the
Yeah.
person said something to me that I thought, okay, well, maybe that's true. Maybe I
I,
just don't understand. He said, and it wasn't Russ, it was someone else. He said, well, we kind of have to, sometimes we have to make humor because if we
mhm.
didn't, it would just be so heavy all the time.
Yes. In that case, I would not have thought humor would have been appropriate. I mean, put it this way, yes. You know, for the people that are going to be watching this, it's going to be tough for me to be able to have any sort of support, but you do joke around about certain things. Obviously, a rape is not something that I would joke around about, but there might be something that may have happened that you just start joking around about other things that may have happened, like maybe something funny that happened at a tailgating or at a bar one night, but it's more or less to change your subject. But I don't know necessarily anybody would want to joke around about something like that. But maybe just joking around in general, although that it's still inappropriate, especially if you're joking and laughing into victims right there, the family's there. Yes, I mean, if I was a supervisor, I would say, guys, calm down. All right, do that outside, do that later, do that at the coffee shop. But yes, you have. That's one of the coping mechanisms police officers use is humor. And that's where, again, we compartmentalize everything. We try to put that in the back of our head like it didn't existed. And you just wait for the next call. And that's how you do this for 25 years.
Yeah, it's a long time. People are, a lot of people, we get jealous, the rest of us have to work until we're whatever retirement age is.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys don't have to work as long and you get those beautiful pensions that
Yes.
I fight over when people are getting divorced.
Yes, we know very. Yes, you were part of mine.
Yes, and we're gonna get to some of that. But
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting because even with what I do, I'm a divorce lawyer. The cases I see are usually higher conflict because those are the people that need lawyers, right?
Of course.
And a lot of times you'll get clients that will say, you don't care, you're not fighting for me, because they want to see you reacting the way that they are, being emotional, and they want to see that. To them, it's a showing that you care.
Yeah.
And I would always say to them, but you don't want me to be like that.
Mm-mm.
Because someone has to be intellectual. Someone has to be making intellectual decisions.
It's a business decision between a couple. That's really what it comes down to. And, again, people are seeing what's on TV. They're seeing all the theatrics, all the emotions and yelling and screaming. But, again, it's TV. So that's a lot of what if you're not yelling and screaming, then someone will think, my God, this person doesn't even care. They're just letting this person walk all over me. And if you get the other attorney who is uh, which I would say is unprofessional, screaming and yelling, and you're not, then they're going to think, well, why isn't she screaming like that for me?
Yeah, I mean, people have different expectations, but that's always my explanation is you don't want me to be emotional. I'm
No.
not the one getting divorced, and I can't be effective for you if I'm just as emotional as you are. So I
Hmm.
would think that is something similar in law enforcement, is you
Yes.
can't take on the emotions of every single situation that you find yourself
No, you definitely can't. I mean, if you did, it's so funny. Like I bring up the super, I'm bringing up the little Superman over here, but I used to joke around with the guys, and I used to tell them, as time went on, I became a veteran. I was turning into the old guy, and I would tell them, look, get dressed at work. It does what it does for me mentally is you hanging up the cape and you go home. And I literally, that's what helped me out the last couple years before I retired, was just mentally hanging up that cape. Uh, and, you were able to go home free.
in. Yeah.
I mean, that took a lot of therapy to get to that, but, but yeah, I mean, that helped me out. But a lot of guys, unfortunately, uh, especially younger guys that don't know that. And if they don't have somebody telling them or expressing what happened in their life, I was always open with my emotions and feelings, especially towards the end of my career, which we'll get into obviously why. But, a lot of guys, they're just keep it. And I was one of them. You keep it inside, And then what happens is you go home and that's where you explode. And
Yeah.
that's why police officers have a high divorce rate, high suicide rate. A lot of it is most police officers introvert, and it's I'm a complete proponent for therapy.
I mean, obviously, I'm not saying anything that we don't already all know, is that there's certain professions where that machismo, if that's the right word,
Hmm. Yeah,
a certain level of masculinity
absolutely.
is
No, that is
expected.
a great, yeah, no, this is a great term. Machismo, yeah.
I've pretty much just gone over your resume, but we know that there were other things going on at different
Hmm.
times
Yeah.
that we haven't talked about. And even some things that I'm not really totally aware of, because when you were a sheriff's officer, we talked a lot more
Hmm.
because we worked together. But then over time, you
Of
had
course.
another job. I was busy learning how to be a lawyer, and we sort of lost touch. And I wasn't
Then you
really,
went and got a boyfriend, and
yeah, I
it
had
ruined our bromance.
yeah, so and I feel a little bad, when I heard that you were having some troubles that I
Hmm.
didn't even know. And we've been such good friends for such a long time that I didn't even know.
No,
And
you didn't know, and believe it or not, my family and my friends didn't know either. I didn't let anybody know until they realized what's going on with Danny. He is not
yeah.
himself anymore.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So you're going through your career. I mean, to anybody on the outside, it looks like, wow, look at Danny, he's successful. He's
Yeah.
really moving up in law enforcement. He's got a great job. He's making money.
Yeah, I
What
was doing
where
very well. Well, I'll tell you, I mean, 2009, I even started my own little business with, selling back braces and knee braces and everything. And I was really enjoying that because it was something other than police work. And, I was doing overtime and, some off duty jobs, but I wanted to do something different, just something completely different where it was just nice to go in an office, bring a box of Joe and some donuts to the doctor and the staff, say hello, please buy my product or at least have your patients come see me. And that was it. Uh, I was doing very well. And like I said, just the job just started to get, uh, it just started really getting to me where I
when would you
started,
say that was? Like how far in?
well, I would say maybe 2011, 2012. I would say around 2012. So at that point, I had about, let's see, I don't know, let's see, about 15, 16 years in. And I mean, I had a lot of time in law enforcement, and just I, I could honestly say I was not the cop, that cop's that cop, whatever you want to call it,
What's
I did.
that?
I guess like a better way of saying is I wasn't that kid that grew up that wanted to be a police officer. I actually my father was a civil engineer, and that was where I wanted to go. I wanted to go to NJIT like he did. And, unfortunately, he passed away at a young age, but I still had some sort of, path in mind that I wanted to become a civil engineer. And like I said, my father-in-law at that time was take the test. And then I felt very pressured with getting, because I'm like, man, well, I did good now. I mean, I was actually hoping I failed, but I still, me in general, I'm not one to go and take a test or do something and try to fail. But I passed, I did very well. And I just took the job. And it was one of those things where I was like, man, I really don't know if this is me.
Did you feel like an imposter the whole time?
No, not really, because then I met friends and, I saw how much fun they were having and things we were doing. I mean, just, going out, getting a bad guy and, saving the world. I mean, that's what we signed up for. And, there was a lot of fun with a lot of laughs. I mean, police officers have the best sense of humor, so we had a lot of fun. Most of my friends, and we just had a really good time, and it was nice to break up that monotony at work. You have you have the job itself, and then you have policies, rules, regulations, state, federal. You got all this pressure on you that you have to, especially towards the latter part of my career. Then cameras came in, and there's a lot of pressure. People don't realize it, but there's a lot of pressure. You're like, my God, if in one split second you can go from going home to the jail being your new home in one split second, one bad decision. And that's a lot of stress for a police officer to have throughout their career. And
So
that's
you
every
had
call.
body cams implemented when you were working.
Yes. Towards the end, like the last couple of years.
So did you, it sounds like you answered this question already, but was there any debate about whether the body cams actually could be good for the police officers to
No, yeah, I definitely can answer that. In the beginning, we were like, oh man, we can't do our job. You can't curse. Sometimes you got to curse to get people's attention. So you might have to drop the F-bomb to get their attention, So now it's like, okay, you can't do that.
Are you not allowed to do that? Is there some rule against that?
It's not, it's just unprofessional. Especially if you're in a courtroom and the next thing you know, the judge sees you and the jury sees you sitting back dropping the F-bomb 7 times because the guy's not listening.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know any lawyers that aren't dropping F-bombs constantly. Not in the courtroom, but outside.
Well, just imagine if that's where it was and now it's being taped, so, but, there is, you have to get, there's levels of force, you're familiar with use of force. And one of them is verbal commands. So, you might have to, like, a lot of people sit back and say, like, we go, now we have to go and say please and sorry. Yeah, those are nice things. Those are things that you should say in the beginning of your interview when you make first contact. How are you? How's the family? What's going on today? How can I help you? Please, could you please have a seat? You say it a couple times, and if they don't listen, then that's where the F-bombs go. Sit the F down, or else you're coming down with me with, you're coming down to headquarters.
Well, you've got to show your authority.
Yeah, exactly. Then there were a couple of incidents where, this was right around where Ferguson started, that whole thing kicked off, and there was a lot of racial tension. Cameras were starting to now be a big thing that the public wanted us to have. And there were a couple of incidences where we had, thank God the guys had their cameras on because they might not have their job right now. But there was a couple of situations where, the people, and this is in small town North Brunswick, guy was videotaping, saying the cops are doing this and doing that and blah, blah, blah. And I believe one of the reverends, one of the community leaders went down to headquarters to find out if there was any sort of civil rights violation. At that time, the director and the chief went, showed them the video, and was like, no, this is what happened. So he was able to go back to his congregation, the community, and say, listen, I saw the tape, and everything that kid said, none of that happened. So then the guy started realizing how important the cameras actually were, that they were going to save your job more likely than with them not available.
Well, I think some people have this perception that police officers are dirty. They just do whatever the hell they want, and they're all going to lie for each other. They're going to protect each other. And what would you say to that?
Back in 1997, yes. We did a lot of different things. There was definitely different tactics on how to get the ill repute out of your town. And I mean, at that time, that's what we were taught. This wasn't something, I mean, it was taught in the academy.
It was taught in the academy?
Yeah, I mean, not beating people, but I'm saying like just that aggressive command presence where, you might have to grab the guy by the arm and say, dude, listen, you're not paying attention. You got to, this was before people were being identified as, with having EDP or, cops didn't know anything about people that are autistic, any sort of mental health issues. I mean, all those things were never brought up. It was, you're not listening, you're coming with me. And that was really it. It was my way or the highway. And that's what we were taught in the academy, basically.
So let's get back to you and your personal experience.
Yeah.
So take me through it. I want you to tell your story. I'm not going to tell your story for you. You start this business where you're selling back races. Is that what it was? Where did things start to go wrong for you?
Like I said, I started to not like being a police. See, it's very tough because I just said moments ago, I missed the job. But there's aspects of the job I do miss, but there is a good portion of it I just did not like anymore. I didn't like the stress. I wasn't good with handling the some of the stressful calls, where somebody just blew their head off, or there was an accident and the guy lost his head, or I was not good with all that gore stuff. So I never talked about it. Never did. I mean, there's guys, if they end up listening to this, they're going to be like, I never knew that. But
and was that something you saw regularly?
Yeah, you did. I mean, there was a call where a friend of mine, my partner, where we were on a woman that just committed suicide. And I'm not even kidding. I swear, this is going to sound completely crazy, but you would hear footsteps going on upstairs. And I was like, yo, what's going on, dude? I thought you said there was nobody upstairs, because you got to treat it like a crime scene. Even though it's obvious it's suicide, you still got to treat it like a crime scene. And, you get everybody out of the house. I'm not even kidding. We hear footsteps going on above us, and we went upstairs, nobody there. We're looking all over the place. So it's just like all that. That's obviously like an isolated situation. That doesn't happen all the time. But I mean, I was like, man, dude, this is where like that police humor comes in a little bit, where you're trying to not freak out, but you're like, man, I think she's running around all over the place, So
that's creepy.
Yeah. But just
the other person
that.
hear it too?
Yeah. We both looked at each other. It was very obvious. I'm not even kidding. Like, I'm not one that believes in ghosts really that much. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? I never paid attention to it, but it was very obvious. It wasn't like pitter patter of church mice running around. It sounded like somebody was walking upstairs. And then we looked at each other and we're like, I thought you cleared the house.
Oh my God. See, that's where I would not be a good police officer, because I'd be like, We
I'm
need
out
to
of
leave
here.
right now.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that was the other thing too, is that you couldn't leave. So if you
Yeah.
were somebody that was like that, like me, freaked out over something like that, you couldn't leave. You had to stay.
Yeah, like I'd be thinking we need to call somebody, but then realizing, well, you're the people that we would need
All
to
the
call.
police. Yeah. Call 911.
All right.
But
So, okay. So,
so anyway, to make a long story short, the job got to me. There was an incident where uh, you remember when they still have it. The youth festival was on Route 1. It's a huge carnival.
yeah.
Yeah. So there was a huge fight, like, which actually we ended up finding out it was a staged fight. And they started assault. There was a Latino gang was pretending that they were fighting each other. And as soon as the two officers that were in that area went to go pull the guys off, they all jumped on them. So, I'm running there, whatever. I actually tripped like a fool, fell on the ground, and I got trampled on because while I was running to go to where the officers were trying, to back up, help them, people were running with me, like just the general crowd. It was very crowded. It was a crowded night. So I ended up getting trampled on and everything. It was crazy. The guys joke around about it, but because they said, like, as soon as I fell, like dust flew all over the place, like pig pen. But anyway, I hurt my back and my neck, and I was out for a while. And I just remembered, like, there was a couple of guys at that time that pensioned out. They took a pension and medical pension or disability pension for their issues, whatever they got hurt at work with. So I was sitting back and I was saying to myself, like, you know what? This is an opportunity for me to get the hell out of this job and at least collect something out of it. Now, I mean, obviously, what ends up happening is, and let me take a step back. I mean, I did hurt myself, and I was being prescribed at that time oxycodone. So being on and off that, there was a lot of emotions involved, which I didn't know anything that was going on. Plus, at that time, I was drinking a lot. So
Would you say you were an alcoholic?
I can now say that I was definitely. I was an alcoholic since I was 13 years old. I just never,
Really?
I just never identified with it. I didn't know about that.
So you think that even all through your 20s and 30s, you were an alcoholic?
Yeah, absolutely.
Never occurred to me that you might be.
Because you only saw me at the bars. You never saw me when I would get home and continue drinking. See, a lot of people, and I never really thought it was a big deal because I'm like, I just want another beer, but then it was 6 beers and a couple of shots, and then you passed out. But I never realized that I had a problem at that time because I didn't want to either acknowledge it or identify or thinking well, I'll tell you exactly one of the things that it was in the back of my head, especially when I was taking the oxycodone, was, well, the doctor gave me this and alcohol is legal. I mean, it can't be that bad of a situation. So I justified it with all that. But real quick, just so I put in for a pension disability and I got denied. And that was it after that. Emotionally, I was gone. I fell right into a big depression because mentally I put my eggs all in a basket. I already had myself retired. I mean, guys were like practically, I mean, they were buying me drinks and having parties that I was leaving because at that time it was, if you had an issue with your neck and your back, like with bulge discs or herniations or whatever, you were guaranteed pretty much to get a pension. So I was sitting back like, all right, this is great. I can get the hell out of this job. Like I said, it wasn't the guys or anything. It wasn't the clowns. It was a circus. I just had enough of it. And after that, that was it. I end up becoming heavily addicted to pills, oxycodone, pain medication, and my drinking like quadrupled. And I lived that way till 2017.
So how many years was that?
Well, February of 2013
To
was,
17?
yeah.
That's a
I
long
mean, I'm,
time.
yeah, yeah. And it wasn't like, you know, I mean, like I said, I remember I got my first time I ever got drunk, I was 13.
That's young.
Yeah. And, you know, so, I mean, those 4 years, it wasn't like I was just having a six pack. I was drinking a liter of Jameson whiskey a night,
A liter.
a liter.
Wow.
Yep.
How do you still have a functioning liver?
I don't know. I have no clue. Believe it or not, I had no signs of cirrhosis or anything. I was very, very surprised. I was very
So
surprised.
did anybody in your life ever, I mean, I know they did, but at what point did people start saying, Danny, I think you have a problem?
Yeah, it was probably around 2014, going into 2015. My wife at the time, Jen, uh, you know, she was starting, you know, I wasn't really there. I wasn't helping. I basically would leave work, would go to right to the liquor store. Sometimes even while I was working, if I was working late or whatever, or it was closing, or I didn't have any at home, you know, I'd go while I was working to pick up the bottles and put it in my car for when I got home. And I mean, I remember going and pulling over on the side of the road and like guzzling just before I got home. So I was like ready to deal with the night and just, you know, not deal with anything. I just did not want to deal with anything. I didn't want to deal with at that time, you know, the kids or just life. I just didn't want to deal with life. I was just not happy at all.
Yeah, and you know, it's like it's not like you can blame it on any one thing, right? Like you can't blame it on
No,
being alcoholic. You can't blame it on I hated my job, and you know,
no, it was
I
a lot of things. It was a lot. It was a whole lifestyle of stuff. You know, like I said, my father died. It was the, you know, this aspects of the job, the things that I saw that affected me. You know, some childhood stuff. You know, it was just all this stuff, and I was an introvert, so I always kept everything inside. I didn't. I thought that if you went to a therapist, that was a sign of weakness. I didn't take any medication. You know, it's amazing, and I know this now, but the most complicated organ in your body, people neglect it every day. And now I am like, bro, you got to go talk to somebody. I recommend that you go talk to somebody, which is why I'm going to school right now to get my master's degree as a social worker.
That's
Because,
great. I love that. Well, I want to talk about that more.
yeah,
But I want to talk about what was happening to you when you were kind of
yeah.
spiraling out of control.
Well, I mean, you know, I mean, to get down to the whole nitty gritty with everything, I mean, I became very addicted to, I ended up going to from 5 milligram oxycodones to 30 milligram roxycodones. And it was what I was taking at that time, plus with the drinking. I can't believe that I am alive to be able to have this conversation with you. I really mean that. And, you know, just very grateful that I can be here now to have this conversation.
Well, I'm
And
grateful too.
yeah, absolutely. And you know, I didn't do this. You know, I've been sober now for almost 4 years. July 12th will be 4 years. And I did not do this alone. I mean, it was my family, my friends, you know, treatment, you know, the AA rooms, you know, it's just, there's a whole network. You can't, and that's the thing is that you always think you're alone and you're not alone. You have a whole network of people that want you to succeed.
Well, it starts with you though. I mean, would you
Yes,
agree with
absolutely.
that? You
Yes,
have to
because
want it.
yeah, because I had to end up going 3 times to treatment. The first time I just was like very childish, very immature. I wanted to be, you know, basically, I I had the adult version of oppositional defiant disorder, and whatever anybody was saying at that point. So then I was like, all right, you know what? I got to go back because I'm going to lose my job. So I still wasn't mentally doing it for me. I was doing it because I don't want to lose my job. I was like, well, I better get back because Chief's going to freaking bring me a new, you know what, and he's going to fire me. So
Well, did something happen? Because it sounds like they wanted you to go to rehab. I mean, was it a secret that you had this problem, or did a lot
yeah,
of people know?
well, no, I mean, Jen and I had a huge argument. I was, which I mean, everything I did, I mean, she had every right to yell at me for. I mean, I was a complete disaster and destroying our family life. So, I mean, we had a huge argument. I was leaving, and she didn't want me to leave because it was obvious that I was drunk. She wanted me to go kill somebody or kill. So she called the police, and then it was, the police have to obviously tell my bosses to let them know what's going on. I mean, they're supposed to do that by policy. You have to do that. So they contacted my headquarters, and was more, if it wasn't for my friends or family, at that point they saved my job and saved me, because even though the first two times I didn't become like sober, it was laying a foundation, because at that time I was like, I'm not going to treatment or rehab. I mean, that's where, heroin addicts and bad people go.
That's not me.
That's not me.
I'm not one of them.
I'm not them. Exactly. Until I got there. And then I realized there were doctors, there were lawyers, there was a sheriff's officer that was there. And I was like, wow. And it was like that whole thinking changed where I was like, this is, there's no discriminating with addiction. Anybody can have it. And I realized, I mean, there was a doctor and an attorney that were like high profile big wigs, like, you call those power attorneys. Like the guy's, he literally lives, and I talk to him all the time still, but he lives 2 houses away from Derek Jeter's house that Tom Brady's staying at. He lives on that same island. I mean, he's got that kind of money. I mean, but he is an alcoholic, and it just goes to show.
Yeah, it doesn't discriminate. But talk to me about what your mindset, because I know this is the way I imagine it happens, is you do start to recognize at some point in time that my drinking is causing a lot of problems. But you still want to be able to do it. So you start thinking, well, maybe I can just do it on weekends.
Just drink some wine or beer. I'll leave the liquor out. Yes, I've done that 100 times. As a matter of fact, every alcoholic has done that. They call it actually research and development.
Really?
In terms of the room, yes. Like if they go out and they're like, you know what, I'm just going to try just have a couple glasses of wine at dinner. Yeah. Or just going to have a beer or two. No big deal. I can't do that. I can't do any of that. I can't even, I wouldn't even have those non-alcoholic ones.
Jules?
Yeah. I mean, I just know for me, it's you're going down a slippery slope. It's just, I just know I can't. I can't.
There are people that will say that, like, oh, well, there seems to be two schools of thought. There's the people that say, well, I can be cured at some point and then I can drink like a normal person.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, I can never drink again.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay.
I can't do anything ever again.
I don't necessarily believe the first one exists. I think
which one's that?
I don't believe that if you're an alcoholic, I don't believe you can drink at all.
No, if you're an alcoholic, you should not drink at all. Absolutely. You can't do anything. I mean, I've heard everything, marijuana maintenance program. I've had a lot of friends try that and they end up going right back to drinking and using. And, there's friends of mine right now. I mean, they're suffering right now. I mean, I have a big network of people that I talk to, and you'd be surprised. Like, I would say out of 40 people that I communicate with, from getting to know them, whether it's in the AA room or NA room or from treatment, I still communicate with them. A lot of times they call me up because they want to know, how is it working? How is, am I still sober? especially with everything that was going on in my life for the past, couple of years. And I just tell them, I mean, you got to stick with the program. There's a program, there's a process, and you have to stick with it. This is, like I said, this is a family unit. You can't do this alone. The second you do this alone or you deviate, it's going to get you.
But I'm sure that you've done a lot of reading and learning about
Yeah.
the nature of addiction. I have, because I have addicts in my family.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a little different when you're focusing on other people as opposed to yourself, your
Yes.
own affliction. And I have read that when an alcoholic has a drink,
Mhm.
they have a very different experience than when with someone who's not an alcoholic has a drink. So like if you and I went out for a drink, which we'll never do again, but if we did, I'll have a drink and whatever, I might feel good, but you're having a completely different experience. And I've heard it's because of brain chemistry.
It is. It's absolutely. I don't know the exact year. I don't remember. Hopefully none of my professors are listening will listen to this, but yeah, I mean, there was a time where they diagnosed substance abuse disorder as a disease. And so, yeah, of course, I mean, like I said, I'm in Rutgers School of Social Work. I'm hoping to get into what's called the ACTS program. It's addiction counseling training. And, I read a lot of stuff on addiction, more importantly for myself, but also to help people. And for me, if I was to go out drinking, I would go, say if you and I were to go out somewhere, go to dinner, you didn't know anything about my past, and I go and we have a glass of wine, I guarantee you that I will start to think of, I got to get to a liquor store now before 12 o'clock because the liquor store is going to close. You know exactly what liquor store. I actually had a guy who I got to know him so well because his house was attached to the liquor store that I would honk my horn at 2, 3 in the morning, and he would just hand the bottle right out his bedroom window, and I'd give him the money. It was like a transaction. That's how bad I was. Yeah, that's how bad I was.
You had a hookup.
I had a hookup. He was my dealer. Like you were saying, we would go out and have a couple glasses of wine. I would never let you know.
Well,
And then
kind
go
of feeling
home.
like a little bit of an idiot that all the time I spent with you, that I didn't see it.
No, you're not an idiot, and neither was anybody that was around me, my family or friends. I just was very good at hiding it. I really was, obviously. And you know what? And that's one of the things that I am going to, be involved with is I'm going to talk about the signs that people like yourself, my friends, and my family, they missed, but there were a lot of signs. And a lot of people were like, I can't even tell you, like even my own family and Jen's family, everybody was like, dude, I had no clue that you were dealing with this.
Well, I remember when you and I did sort of reconnect and we were talking more, and it was right before you got divorced,
Mm-hmm.
and then when you were getting divorced, because I handled your divorce. Yes. And I remember thinking, and I even said this to you, like, Tammy, when I knew you were so together. You really had your shit together. You were professional. And I remember you were, you always talked about saving your money and, paying off debt. And you just seemed like you were really together and you were responsible. And I was like, what the hell happened to you?
Yeah, no, it's so true. And you know what the funny thing is that a lot of people look at the house on the outside and see how beautiful it is, yet it's a complete disaster inside. And that's what my life was. My life was basically, I had a wonderful landscaped house, but inside was a complete disaster. It looked like when I'm referring to that, I'm referring to my head.
Yeah.
I put on a good front. I was always, people always used to tell me at work, Danny, it's always nice seeing you coming in smiling. You make my day. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you would come in and your smile got me through the last hour.
But you were always fun. I remember that
Yeah,
about you. You don't remember you having grumpy days, or maybe your
yeah,
version of grumpy was still pretty pleasant.
yeah, absolutely. I really did try to do my best to um, always stay happy. I felt like I didn't want to put anybody out of their way to worry about me. Like I didn't want my problems to be anybody else's problems. If anything, I was handling other people's problems and taking on other people's problems. Meanwhile, I had my issues that were being unattended to
Yeah.
by my own doing.
Did you ever drink at work?
Yes.
You did.
Yeah.
Can you get in trouble for
Unfortunately,
that now? Maybe we shouldn't
I should
talk
have gotten in
about.
trouble there. I mean, look, I mean, it was, yes. I mean, I'm not proud to say, but to be perfectly honest, yeah, I did. It wasn't anything where like I was guzzling a liter, but because I got to such a bad point in my life with withdrawals, I would have to take a little bit. Like I would have a Gatorade bottle with just a little bit in like a Gatorade bottle, and I would have to take a little bit. Like it would be probably a shot, I would say a night. But yeah, I was under the influence.
Did anybody ever suspect or say
I'm
anything?
sure they did. That's that whole thing. It's a very, very touchy situation. I know guys knew. I just knew they knew, and I ended up finding out later that they knew because they came to me after I got back and things were great and been sober since uh, July 12th, 2017. That's when I went to the last treatment center. But yeah, they eventually said, dude, I knew something was off with you and I could smell it on you or whatever. Uh, but I mean, it's a very, very dangerous situation. And there were a lot I've been throughout my career. I wasn't the only one that's done that. There's been many times starting from when I first started to when I was just ended. There's a lot of cops that do that. And it's very scary. And of course, the public's trust is, and you know, they're just like a doctor. Would you want a doctor to operate on you being drunk or under the influence? Would you want a cop holding a gun and
Yeah.
under the influence? So yeah, but unfortunately, the addiction. I was not concerned about my job. Obviously, I was more or less concerned about I had to keep myself from going through the withdrawals because of the pain.
Yeah. Yeah. You alcohol withdrawal is actually really dangerous. I don't know, a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. You have your benzos like Xanax. Anyone that comes off of, uh, you know, alcohol, the withdrawing from alcohol or your benzos, Xanax or whatever, they will, they should go to a detox because you could have a heart attack and die.
Yeah. Yeah, you can die from that. It's dangerous.
Hmm.
So when did you start to have this feeling like when did you internally say, Danny, you gotta get clean?
You know, I mean, it was, man, I would say when I saw my daughter crying and having panic attacks, and it really broke my heart. And I mean, she's got these, big blue eyes. And, she came to me and she said, Daddy, I want you to stop. And my God, it broke my heart. I'm going to start getting emotional now again. But yeah, and I realized at that point that, you know, this is, uh, this is something I have to do for my family, for me.
How old was she then?
Oh, let's see. So she was about 6 or 7.
Do you think that now that you're more self-aware, do you think it had anything to do with you maybe not respecting yourself, like feeling good about yourself?
But without a doubt, I had major depression and anxiety, and I wasn't taking care of myself. I mean, like I said, the most complicated organ in our body, I was neglecting. And there's chemicals, there's hormones, there's all type of dopamine, there's everything going on in your prefrontal cortex is just you have a lot of stuff going on, and I wasn't taking care of it. And had I known, or actually respected the advice of what people told me to go talk to a therapist, and maybe you need medication, maybe I wouldn't have gotten that bad, or maybe I would have prevented it years ago. I mean, Jen used to tell me all the time, you need to see somebody, you got to talk about these things. And maybe you need to see, but I really thought, like, no, I'm a police officer. We're not supposed to have that show that weakness, or I'm not weak. I got this.
Well, something I remember about you that we had talked about a long time ago was you were young when your father died. And
Yes.
did you feel like a lot of responsibility, like I have to be the man of the house now?
Yeah. And, I'm glad you brought that up, because, for the longest time, I had all this pressure on me, and I was never like, I mean, I had a childhood, but that from like 13 to about 18, 20, I would say, uh, well, no, about 21, about the time when I finally was like moving out, I felt like I had all the responsibility of the world, but I put this on myself. It wasn't like my mother said, "Hey, I want you to be the father of the house." She never said anything like that. I took on that role. And by taking on that role, I put a lot of pressure. I mean, my brother and sister probably hated me at that point in my life, because I was treating them like a child and like I was their father. But I had all this pressure on me. And, like I said, I mean, I didn't see anybody. I didn't talk about it. I just,
Well, was that pressure that you put on yourself, or was there something subtle, if you want to talk about it, that you feel like your mom did to kind of put you in that role?
yeah, well, see, probably around the time when we were having these conversations, I was blaming my mother at that time. But after the last treatment place that I was at, and my therapist, who was unbelievable, we were able to process that, and just layer by layer, I got to where I was able to realize my mother actually never said to me, "Danny, you're the man of the house now. You have to take on all this." No, I took it upon myself and did this. And what happened was, and which led to things going on down the road with other people, is I never set barriers. I never said no. If somebody needed something, I always said yes, even though I knew that it was interrupting my life or my schedule, or it was going to be too much for me to handle. I couldn't say no to people. So I felt like I would let them down. It would be something simple like, "Hey, listen, man, I need some help with cutting trees down," or, my plumbing's messed up, or, just whatever. I'm like, I need a hand around the house with or the car or whatever. I never said no to anybody. So eventually I finally learned that I had to set boundaries, and I had to think about me and my health. I have Crohn's disease and everything. So that was another thing that was a factor in my depression too.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about that. You've had a lot going on, Danny.
Yeah, man, I'm a complete mess. Let
Well,
me
we've
tell you something.
gotten through everything.
No, we haven't. No, and and I just want to say, yeah, I do have problems, but looking back at what I have compared to what a lot of other people have, I'm very grateful from where I'm at right now. I really am. Even though I'm completely broke, I'm 45, living at my mother's house right now. But I'm going to tell you right now, I'm the happiest broke guy out there in the world. I really am. This is not going to be my legacy,
You
but
still got a long way to go. You're
I got
not
a
old.
lot of
What,
years.
you
I got a lot
26?
of good things. Yeah, I got a lot of good things coming. I got a lot of plans, but yeah. So I mean, the during this time when I was drinking and taking pills and everything, I was approached about doing these compounding, uh, this compounding drug, for pain. It
Through your
was
business.
yes. I was approached by somebody. I can't mention names or anything because it's still ongoing, even though you know, I did take a plea in the matter, and I did admit to everything that my part. And, you know, this was during 2015 and 16.
You
And
were addicted at that time.
I was completely, yeah, I was full blown addicted. I was not making, I mean, I was not making any good decisions at all. I never got in a car accident. And during that period, I think I got like 5 or 6 car accidents.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did
I
anyone
mean,
get hurt?
no. But no, it was a lot of it was like, you know, going around a turn and jumping a curb and hitting the telephone pole or a sign or something like that. But
And
it
you
was
were
just,
drunk or high?
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so I was approached about doing this whole compounding thing. I can't get into the whole thing still, but maybe that's another day when this is all settled. We could talk about that, the details. But it was another one of my stupid decisions, and end up coming back as a couple of weeks ago. I took a plea, and I could be facing jail time.
So
And
so basically, to summarize, you got mixed up with some
yeah,
transactions that are considered to be insurance fraud,
healthcare fraud, yes,
healthcare fraud.
yes, yep. There was, you know, like I said, there was compounding. A lot of the stuff I didn't, you know, I knew that there was some stuff I was like, all right, this really, we shouldn't really be doing this. And there was a lot of it that I really didn't realize until I ended up finding out like a few years ago, when I knew. I was said, oh my God, we did, like, people were getting arrested for this because it was this, you know, there was a huge uh, countrywide, uh, I guess, a scheme going on that I didn't even know about, of people taking the compounding and using certain insurances. Like what I did was, you know, I would ask the guys at work if they were interested. Here is a compound. If you got back problems, if you want vitamins, whatever, you know, and the guys did not know, uh, like, anything behind it, that they were doing anything wrong at all. And they thought they were helping me out. And they were looking at it like, oh, you know, Danny is going through a tough time. I'm sure they knew that I was drinking and really in a bad spot. And they probably thought this is a great way for me to help him out. Maybe if he made some money, he'll be happy and he'll stop drinking or something. I mean, that's the one thing I could imagine was going on in their head. So, I mean,
Just so people know, because I know you can't talk a lot of details about that right now, but if I could invite people to just Google you, they'll
yes,
find
you can.
an article.
Yes.
I've done it. I've Googled you, and
Yes,
you know, there's an article floating around and kind of
yeah, no, you know, I'll tell you what, the this has been going on for a couple of years, that even before I knew I was a target of an investigation, I knew that it was eventually I was going to be one. I just saw it coming. And, you know, I just, for 2 years, I had stress. It was really killing my stomach with my Crohn's and everything. And it just, I had
Why
enough.
didn't
And
you just stop?
oh no, I was done. I'm talking, you know what, let me take a step back so everybody knows the date line here, the timeline. So yeah, 2015 and 16 is when this went on. And then I didn't find out about it until, like, you know, that stuff was going down until 2019. So I was already, well, you know, it was already several years at this point, 4 years.
Because to read the article, it sounds like you were the mastermind of this huge healthcare fraud ring, and
Yeah.
you made like millions of dollars. I
No.
mean, that's the way the article kind of.
Yeah, no, it's, look, I mean, first off, I did not, I mean, I'm 45 years old living at my mom's. I definitely did not make that kind of money. There's other people that were involved that did make the money. I did get some money out of it in the beginning. And like I said, you know, it would have to be me getting deep into the whole
Yeah.
scheme. But yeah, I mean, there was definitely, I mean, the feds, they did their job. They did they were very, very good with me. I have unbelievable amount of respect for them. I didn't like them at one point only because I knew I was at a bad spot, but I didn't like them because I didn't like me. I didn't like my situation, but
Yeah.
they were doing their job and they did the right thing. And, look, I wanted to go down as soon as I heard that I was, that one of the offices was raided. I was like, I got to go and talk to them. I got to tell them I'm a part of this. They didn't even know that I was a part of it at this point.
They being the police,
The FBI, yeah.
which most people are like, what? Are you crazy? You're not going to go talk to the FBI. And
Yeah.
I want to clarify something too for the people listening that don't
Sure.
already know this is when you are part of a conspiracy, because that's
Mhm.
basically what this was,
Yeah, absolutely.
you're responsible. Every one of the conspirators is responsible for what the others are doing.
Yes.
So if you had one little part of it,
Well, that was the whole
you're
thing.
still responsible for all of it.
Every single thing. Yes. It's I don't want to say FBI. The federal laws are not like the state laws. And it was just the situation basically was that even though I did not make, even let's say if I didn't make $1,
Mm-hmm.
it was just because I was involved. I get clumped in with everything.
Yeah.
And everybody that's involved, that's even on a low scale.
So why did you feel like you needed to go talk to the FBI? Because I know you even told me that your attorney had advised you against that particular course of action. Why was it important to you to do that?
I had just this overwhelming amount of guilt. I felt I didn't sleep for 2 years. Well, actually, I mean, I didn't sleep until I finally got it off my chest. But yeah, it was my attorney wanted me to hold off just yet because, of course, she has to do her job. She has to find out what's going on in the first place. And are you even a target of the investigation? And, she did a wonderful job. But I still finally told her, look, I want to go in and I want to tell them I have to. And the reason why I did it was because this was the last thing that I could at least say. I don't think if there's anything else out there going on that I may have done, I really don't remember. But let's just say, for argument's sake, this was the last thing that I was involved with that had anything to do with my past, with my addiction. And I wanted to put it to rest. And I approached them not as a person admitting guilt. It wasn't just that. I actually told them on the record, I wanted to do an amends. And that's how I treated it. I wanted to do amends to all the people that I affected, say taxpayers, just anybody, my coworkers, my family, my friends. I mean, I did all individual amends, but I wanted to do like this, this big amends to everybody. Matter of fact, it might sound crazy, might sound funny, but I had to do this for me. I even wrote Governor Murphy a letter saying that I needed to make amends with the state of New Jersey. I know it sounds crazy. I did. I mailed it. I did. But I'll tell you,
did you ever get a response?
No, I haven't got a response. Probably thought it was, he's probably like, look at this guy. We got COVID going on and he wants me to worry about his amends. He probably put it right in the shredder. But anyway, you know what though? It made me feel really good. And I don't see him going on 5 o'clock news saying, I just want to make this official. This is Danny's amends for everybody. But it was the reason why I wrote him was because he is the leader of the state of New Jersey. He's the voice of for us, and he's the biggest politician. So I looked at that as, by me telling him, and just like us talking right now, I told you that as soon as things got settled down, I wanted to do this because this is my opportunity also to say, hey, look, I affected a lot of people by the decisions I made, and look, whatever I could do to make it up. I really am uh, I really want to put the past behind me and the poor decisions I made. I'm not a bad person. I just made some really bad decisions.
Yeah, well, who hasn't, right? But I have to say, I really applaud you because so many people go through life, sometimes their entire life, and really make themselves a victim. And
Hmm.
it's always someone else's fault. I mean, you could blame your friend who, got you involved in this, or any number of other people who allowed this to happen. You could blame your wife, you could blame your mom, you could blame
I
a lot of
blame,
people.
yeah, I could blame everybody, but the person that really should be blaming is me.
And people do it. People
They
do it
do.
all the time. People
Yeah.
blame other people for their bad mistakes all the time. And I've never, in the time that we've talked about this, never ever gotten the sense that you didn't take full and total responsibility for everything, admit your wrongdoing, and like you said, just express that you just wanted to be done with it and move forward and move on with your life.
Yeah. And you know what? Honestly, like there's going to be people out there that obviously are not going to give me that acceptance of my amends or forgiveness and I respect that. I really do. I understand that there's going to be some people that it's just going to take some time or maybe it never happens. But I just wanted to at least go and offer my sincere apologies for whoever I did affect. I mean, you know, uh, even if it's a person that's just a taxpayer and, putting taxpayers' money into my matter to entertain my stupidity at that moment.
Yeah.
So, that was really what this is. This was all very important. All these little things I've been doing. And it's another reason why I'm getting involved in this field of addiction is because it's so funny because I was thinking about what I would talk to you about. And, these are one of the things I want to talk about was that, when people say, if I could just, help one person out there, I want to help anybody and everybody. I'm not limiting it, but I want to do it on a large scale and I'm going to. And I've been putting a lot of finances to the side and some money to the side to form once the tax season's over, my accountant's going to help me set up a nonprofit charity organization, which will help with people that are unfortunately not in great financial situation to afford to get good quality treatment or possibly maybe the first month or two rent for a sober living home. I have a couple of things that I plan on doing. I'm going to hopefully have my own podcast and hopefully that's with you, but we'll
Yes,
see.
I was going to say it's not going to be your own podcast, it'll be our podcast.
I know. I can't wait. I really can't wait. I think it's going to be wonderful.
I'm looking forward to it too. So,
Yeah.
so spoiler alert, Danny and I are talking about
Yes.
starting a podcast and getting that together. So we'll keep everybody posted on that.
Yeah, it's
I'm
going to be
looking
very.
forward to it, and it is going to focus on addiction related issues.
Yep.
That's about all we know right now.
Yeah, we got to put things together. It's a work in progress, but I'm really, really excited about it. And I think that, we'll have a lot of fun too.
Yeah, I think so. We always had fun. We always
Yep.
had a lot of fun. And I don't want to go like too deep into what
No,
happened in your marriage and in your divorce, but I
it's
know that
important.
it's part of it, right?
Yeah, and
You
I'm
weren't
glad.
happy for a long time.
Well, one of the things, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I could actually answer the question because I know where we've had many conversations, and that's another thing too is getting back to that blaming. I did blame Jen for a lot of things, and in reality, after, like I said, when you take this disease seriously, and you realize like the people that you hurt along the way, you start to realize your wrongdoings and what your part was. And by me doing that, I realized what I was basically doing with Jen was I was trying to mold her into a person that I wanted. and not accepting her for who she was. And that put a lot of stress and pressure on her because she wanted to obviously do everything she could to make her husband happy. But, you know, I was never happy with myself. And by me not being happy with myself, I was looking for something to blame. And that's why I blamed Jen.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, I mean, and I'll tell you right now, because of me changing my attitude and realizing this, we have a wonderful relationship. I mean, we have probably the most, the weirdest divorce ever because we're very, very good friends. We really are. I mean, you know, really, it was just, uh,
Well, I think that's the best situation to be in. It's always
yes.
better for the kids.
And well, absolutely. And, that's what I wanted to get to. And one of the reasons why I definitely wanted to come and do this with you is because I always stalk you on your podcasts or your or LinkedIn or something, but you always raise an important question or statement. You make an important statement, and that is, why do you stay for the kids? And although, look, I love Jen. I'll always love Jen. She's the mother of my kids. She's a wonderful woman. She's doing very well. But, well, I mean, we should have never got married. Where we did, we had two beautiful kids, my son and daughter. They're amazing. But I realized that we were staying together for the kids, and we were doing more damage by us staying together.
I always tell people that.
I know. I see you say that all the time, and I'm telling you from experience that I stayed 5 years. Probably, when I say I stayed, I mean, we stayed married 5 years longer than what we should have. And the reason why we did that was because we were thinking we were doing something to help the kids. Meanwhile, my daughter was developing panic attacks. My son completely isolated and shut down. After I finally got my you-know-what together.
You can curse on here.
I'll try to be a gentleman. Shit. So I finally got that together. And I mean, my daughter, I can't, and my son now, I can't even get up from the couch without them tackling me and hugging me. And, I love you, Daddy. I miss you. When I come to see them, pick them up for, either Jen and I, we share every 4 days. And it's just amazing by just a little bit of a attitude change and these adjustments, the people that you affect, I don't want to take that away from them. So
yeah, I mean, I remember when you were unhappy, and I think I probably did say things to you like that if you were, if you were staying for the kids, that you might consider that it's actually more damaging to them for them to observe a dysfunctional relationship.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of the conversations I had about my marriage too was me really painting a picture that really never existed.
Maybe, because I do remember at times saying to you, well, it can't be all her.
Yeah.
You're part of it too.
No, I was perfect.
But you were a different person at that time. You were, you had a different mentality. And I'm really glad that you guys get along now and you're friends. And
No, without a doubt. I mean, I'm telling you, like, just the whole situation, we really look to help each other. And I say this to couples, if you really love your kids, put aside the immaturity and the past and let it go. I used to go on calls with domestics, and I used to be like, just let it go. Who cares if she's dating or he's dating, and the girlfriend's 10 years younger and blonde or whatever. Who cares? At the end of the day, you're damaging your kids. Your kids are going to be in and out of therapy or possibly addiction. But
yeah, I think I said something to you one time. I don't know if you remember this. Which, looking back, it was either like brilliant or really awful that I said this to you. But I remember saying to you, do you want your daughter to end up with a guy like you?
Oh God. I think I probably answered no.
I think you said no at this
Yeah,
time. Um,
no, definitely not.
it wasn't like I was trying to break you up, but I wanted you to be happy. And if,
Of course.
not, if being in the marriage wasn't what was going to make you happy and be healthy for everybody, there's one of two things. You either need to acknowledge that and get a divorce, or you need to work on it,
Yeah.
but be committed to working.
Well, that was it. I mean, look, I did a lot of, really messed up things. I mean, throughout my marriage, there was, I wasn't faithful. I was drinking and then, gambling. I had a very, very addictive personality. I have one. It's not like it goes away. I have a very addictive personality. I mean, I wouldn't even go down to Atlantic City or put myself in, it wasn't even just the gambling. It was because of the drinking that was involved with it. I related everything to drinking, and I had to stop doing these things for a while because I didn't trust myself. And the best way for me to handle that was to stay away. The whole people, places, and things, that's the word, that's the,
Yeah.
what they use in treatment and just in general. You could use that with anybody, with anything, whether you have an addiction or not. It's just, the people you choose to hang out with, the places you go to hang out with, and the things you choose. I mean, really, look, I never raised my hand and said, I'm going to grow up and be an addict, alcoholic, and possibly go to prison for a few years. That's not what I wanted to, I raised my hand for.
Yeah. That's a good segue though. Are you going to get jail time?
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, it is a possibility. And the best day was a couple of weeks ago when I finally took my plea, because I was able to finally put this whole thing to rest. And a big chunk of weight came off. Now, as far as the sentencing, and if I do get jail, I'm okay with it. I really am. I mean, do I want to go to jail? No, I don't want to go to jail. Who wants to go to jail? But if I do, I've already mentally accepted that it's a possibility, and I have to do what I have to do. I mean, look, I still, at the end of the day, did what I did. And if the judge feels as though, it warrants it, then that's what is going to end up happening. And who knows? Hopefully I can get to go where Martha Stewart went.
Well, you already know what it's like, right?
Yeah, I guess I do. I never thought that I'd be on that side of the bars, but hey,
Oh,
you know
yeah,
what?
I know, right?
It's the point I want to make about it is that you see where alcohol and drugs and any sort of addiction itself can get you in a lot of trouble. It can.
But don't you think the addiction is really not the problem? It's a symptom of something.
What's that?
Do you feel like the addiction is a symptom of something bigger? It's
Well,
not the problem,
it's
it's the symptom.
well, no, yeah, exactly. I've always mentioned this too. Whenever I would talk to somebody that was dealing with, I get calls all the time now. People, I made it very known at headquarters, and I get some of the cops call me up still and say, can you talk to this one or that one for me? Friends and family. So the first thing I always ask is, ask yourself, what is the pain? What is your pain? Not what's the addiction. I know that you're addicted to something, but what is your pain? That's what you really got to ask yourself. Why are you doing this to yourself? So what's your why? What's your, that's what you have to figure out, is what is your why pertaining to the addiction? Why are you
What
doing
was
this?
yours?
Well, it was just a lot of it was just I was not happy with my current life. I just wasn't happy with me. And instead of like say even the job, yeah, I felt stuck because I was like, look, like, this is a great career. Say what you want, but it's a wonderful career. It's a professional career. It's an honorable position being. Besides the benefits of pension and all that, I didn't want to lose any of that stuff. And instead of going and calling it quits, which I should have, and start a whole new career, um, I felt like I was going to let everyone down if I quit. Like my family would have said, like, why did you quit? You had such a great job. Like, why would you do that? And
A lot
then,
of it's caring too much what other people think.
yeah, that played a major role, was me worrying about what the guys think, that I was, weak. Uh, you know, there's another word out there. It starts with a P, but I'm not going to go. I still be a gentleman, but no, I mean, in reality though, that really did play in my head. I wanted to leave many times, and that's why uh, when I was denied my disability, I was like, I really went south with it, was because I didn't have that excuse to say, well, look, my neck was hurt and my back was hurt. But in reality, what it really was is I just did not like being in this job because I couldn't handle it anymore. Mentally, I just could not handle it. And listen, it takes a special person to be able to do this career. It really does. And I basically forced myself to do it for almost 20, well, a little over 22 years.
I mean, and I hope you don't look at yourself like a failure in any way. I
No,
mean, you did it
no,
for a long time.
no. Like I said, I loved aspects of the job. I really loved helping kids out, um, helping families out, and getting involved with turning somebody to, you know, take the right path. Those things I loved. I really did. But when it came to anything related to blood and gore, no, I was not good with that stuff.
Yeah,
I had a, I'll tell this one story. I mean, it's very sad, but this guy tried to cut his head off with a circular saw. And I
he
remember,
wasn't successful.
no, he wasn't. I didn't need like, I don't know, like a couple hundred stitches and everything.
He lived.
He lived at that moment. I don't know if anything ever happened to him after that. I hope everything's going well with the guy. But yeah, he tried to, the ones that come down, it cuts the wood. They
Yes.
call it a chop saw, but yeah, he
Yeah.
put his, and what happened was, I guess obviously as soon as you start, like, he tried to cut his neck, and the sensation, whatever, it like sliced down his face. I hope that you get probably like half your audience is probably like throwing up right now.
That's
But
incredible to me that someone tried to do that.
I actually, one of the guys came on scene, and I almost fainted, because it was like a 95, 100-degree day. You got your vest on and all that stuff. And after, the guy was taken away, I had to like take half my clothes off in the car, like my shirt, my vest, and all that stuff, and let the cold air hit me, because it was really bad. It was really bad. It's just, just all that stuff. I
So
was
what
not good with.
happened? Did someone find him and call 911?
No, he called him. He actually called himself. Yeah, he said, I tried to kill myself, and I'm bleeding all over the place, something like that. It came in.
Just imagine the amount of mental anguish someone must be in to do that to
Yeah,
themselves.
yeah. I mean, look, I mean, it's very unfortunate, but I mean, I've had, a couple of people, a couple of, friends and coworkers kill themselves. And, one of them in particular, I was very good friends with. And you would never know. Like how you said, I didn't know you were going through all this pain and all this stuff. Same thing with him. We never knew.
Yeah, no, I mean, no one's going to talk about it. And I always, I'm always taken aback a little bit when people say that suicide is a really selfish act. I suppose you could look at it that way, but I really believe that unless you've ever been suicidal, and I'm not saying I've been suicidal, but I think that you can't even comprehend
No, we
what
can't.
that person is feeling, where they are so depressed or afflicted in some way that they actually want to end their lives, and they actually do it.
Yeah, I mean, there are the ones that are absolutely committed and really do it. There is also the other side of the coin where they feel as though they would help their family by this. Their family would be a lot happier with them gone. And that's also something that, you know, there's a lot of cops that deal with that every day. And they
Yeah.
sit back and they fight with themselves. I mean, there was times I thought about taking my own life. It was.
Well, I'm
And
glad you didn't.
I'm glad I didn't either.
Well, I have a coach who says that, whatever bad things happen in your life, there is a gift in it.
Mhm.
You just have to figure out what it is.
That's it. Yeah. Well, that's it. There's two things that affect there's two things that happen in a person's life. One, they're born, and two, they figure out why. So
Did
once
you
you
figure out why?
I hope so. I mean, my why I think is just really going to be that I had to go through all this pain so that I can help other people. And that's what I'm going to do. I can't see any bad coming out of it. I just really genuinely am happy to get involved with this. And now that my case is, pretty much settled, I mean, I still got some things that I have to handle with it, but, one way or the other, regardless, and, I got to find out if I'm able to still have a license or not. But no matter what, even if I can't have a license and be an actual therapist or a social worker, I'm still going to be heavily involved with this community and this population.
Well, I hope that you can have your license because I can't think of anybody better and better suited for it. I haven't gone through what you've been through. And I'm looking forward to our podcast.
Yes, I can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it will be. We'll have to talk more about that. And for people that are watching or listening, if they just want to reach out to you and say hi, or maybe they have some stuff of their own going on that they want to talk to you about, how should they reach out to you?
Well, you could have my phone number and text me. I really hope that I don't get any
crazy pants,
crazy stuff, but no, my phone number is 609-235-8586. If you or somebody you know is suffering in addiction, please contact me. Absolutely. I will. I have so many resources available now. So.
Well, thank you, Danny. Thanks for being so open and honest.
Yeah, no, I'm so happy that I was able to do this. I'm happy to finally see you. I haven't seen you in forever, even if it is on Zoom.
Yeah, well, one day, I mean, COVID is responsible for that, not you or
yes,
me, but
for
one day soon.
For once, I'm not at fault with something.
Maybe we can go back to, I don't even know if it's still there. Remember Caribbean Cafe
Yes.
you go to all the time?
Yes, that would be nice. You know what? I owe you a birthday present.
You do. And I'm going to make sure that I collect on it. Don't you worry.
Well, look, I'm retired, so just tell me when.